look, if he hadn't had a strong speech after, what was it, an hour? First of all, the man could use an editor, but let's park that for a second.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. As you know, the Conservative Convention is happening in Quebec this weekend, with CPAC providing full coverage of the event. One thing they do is ask political commentators to appear on segments and give their thoughts in real time as to what they think of the event, whether it be speeches or public discussions, and sometimes it gives some very interesting perspectives.
And sometimes you get an angry lady from the NDP party who sounds like she was stood up by Pierre on a date back in high school. Now help us keep this channel growing strong by hitting that like button to help push this channel out to more viewers, and subscribe to the channel so you are notified about our next episode. If you would like to support the channel, please give us a super thanks by clicking the button right below the video, or buy us a coffee or a pizza via the Buy Us a Coffee link in the description. Now let's get into it.
Now, there will be a lot of noise behind us, but we certainly want to talk about that speech that we just heard from Pierre Poilievre. And to do that, we're joined by two people who you know very well from Primetime Politics, two political observers, Sean Murphy, senior consultant at Earnscliffe Strategies, who spent nearly a decade on Parliament Hill as a senior Conservative Party staffer in both government and opposition. Kim Wright, principal with Wright Strategies, who worked in politics at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels for more than 30 years, including for several years as an NDP staffer at Queen's Park. Now, you'll notice that we don't have a liberal a political observer with us today, and that's because there were and are no liberal observers here taking part in this convention that were able to speak with us. The Liberal Party says that they were not invited to send observers, so we will continue our discussion, although we should note that a little later on you will hear from Liberal Cabinet Minister Pablo Rodriguez. He is holding a scrum outside the convention center. We'll bring that to you a little later here in CPAC.
Rodriguez is there too. What a couple of losers.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I bet Trudeau sent them down
Oh,
to
probably.
go and take some spotlight. We need some points. Like, my goodness.
Oh my god.
Let's bring in Sean. Let's bring in Kim. First and foremost, and I'll begin with you, Kim, because you have less affiliation with the party. What do you make of that speech that we just heard from Pierre Poilievre?
Well, and the fact that the awkwardness of the CPAC saying, the Liberals weren't invited.
I wouldn't invite the Liberals either.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm not sure there's any red meat left in the entire province of Quebec, because it was all up on that speech and that stage. It was entirely designed to rally his base. There was nothing that felt authentic about it. It felt forced. It felt contrived. You know, it's been interesting to watch this evolution of Pierre Poilievre, and we'll talk about this in a bit. But everything feels like, from the common sense slogan, which is a throwback to the Mike Harris Ontario government. He's, walking around in his tours wearing Aaron O'Toole's old shirts. He's got Andrew Scheer's old resume. He talks about common people and their festivals. There is nothing that is authentic about what we keep seeing. And the reality is the policies he keeps talking about are ones he didn't implement when he was a Harper minister. He talked about how cryptocurrency most recently was going to be the thing that saved us all from inflation, and we saw how that worked. So there's a lot of things that, if he's trying to introduce himself to Canadians, I don't think that this is a speech that hit the mark.
Damn, she is bitter. Oh my goodness.
I told you, I bet Pierre turned her down for a date.
Wow. I haven't seen this yet, guys. Cypher's watched it already, but I haven't. But holy smokes.
Yeah, this is something else. And she's completely destroying her own credibility here, folks, because as a political commentator, you're supposed to be relatively neutral. Like, we've strongly disagreed with some things that Tom Mulcair has said. He recently wrote a really big opinion piece that I strongly disagree with, but he's at least made some fairly objective comments when he's talking to CTV. You know, he would say, you know, I think Pierre needs to do some work here, but he's done really well over here. I think Trudeau has made a huge mistake over here, but I think, you know, this is where his strengths are. So he can at least be sort of measured when you're talking about to him. So, and it's a great comparison because he was the former leader of the NDP, right? Yet you have this lady, like, who sounds like she woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning.
You know what I've noticed about leftist women? They absolutely hate Pierre Poilievre. I have no idea why. As a conservative woman, I have no idea why.
Probably because he has a good-looking wife, a hard-working wife, and a fully functional family, and he's not divorced, unlike somebody else we know.
Well, and I think you're onto something there, because I think leftist women have this idea in their heads that strong conservative men are there to demean and subjugate women. I'm married to a strong conservative man. That's not their MO, like, at all. Seriously though, I think that's their beef, is that they have like this picture in their head of what a strong conservative man is. And when they don't fit that, it makes them so angry. And when they see that their wife is happy and supportive and loving, it drives them up the wall.
Well, because they've been sold the leftist feminist lie that you need to go out and be a boss babe, and you know what, this is going to go down a whole other rabbit hole, but it just produces bitter old women that end up alone.
Well, and to speak to that rabbit hole, I'll keep it short, but I have never, ever, ever had a man say anything demeaning to me for the fact that I choose to be a stay-at-home wife and mother. It has always been other women.
Yep, because they're jealous that they can't have it.
Okay, Sean, what do you make? I take it, because you're not the only conservative in the room, you have a very different take on that.
Yeah, I you know, not surprisingly, I didn't quite see it the same way as Kim. I thought, you know, Pierre has been in politics for a long time. He's given a lot of speeches, and I think without a doubt, given the situation we're in right now, this is the most important speech of his career to date, and I'd say he knocked it out of the park.
So, interesting contrast here. Outside of saying that Pierre knocked it out of the park, this guy was very measured. His tone was pretty uniform. He was very respectful.
Yeah, he wasn't a seething emotional mess.
No. And he didn't say, wow, you're full of shit, Kim. Like, he basically said that, but in a very conservative and respectful way. Well, I didn't exactly see it the same way as that. And here's the thing. If you haven't watched Pierre's speech, we will put a link to it in the description. Watch it.
It was phenomenal.
And Pierre didn't go to drama class. He is not a great actor. He almost cried at least twice during that speech. And for this lady to say, well, it's contrived, wasn't authentic.
Well, and there was a spot where he was speaking about his daughter, who I didn't know until he said it, is also special needs. You know, like our son, something else perhaps that we have in common. But, you know, you could see how proud he was to speak about his family. And leftists just hate the fact that people can be happy just with their family, that their family is enough to provide happiness and contentment and love.
And here's the other difference, is that Pierre doesn't ask for privacy from his family and then post Instagram pictures of him taking his son to a Barbie movie. He doesn't ask for privacy. He just ensures that they have privacy. That's it. His daughter was actually at the event, and his daughter was, you know, kind of trying to interrupt him, and Pierre kind of deviated from his speech to acknowledge that, but he did it in such a very smooth way. He said, yeah, you know, my daughter does this when we're at home and I'm practicing. And it was a moment. It was a nice moment.
It was cute. Like, if you have kids of your own, like, you can identify with that. You know that feeling.
You know, it just completely ruins this lady's credibility when she attacked everything. Like, didn't even give him a nugget. And it goes on.
Yeah, you know, Kim, I hear what you're saying, but without a doubt, though, you know, it seems the majority of Canadians agree with Sean. This speech aside, you look at the polling numbers, and there is resonance that is helping the Conservative Party right now, building a huge lead over the Liberals, over the NDP. In fact, the NDP has flatlined, according to what we've been speaking with.
Burn.
When the notoriously neutral CPAC host, and this guy is notoriously neutral. He gives everybody a hard time, justifiably, because that's his job, is to give them a hard time in terms of challenging them on the core issues. And when he starts giving you a hard time about your party, so basically saying, that's rich, Kim. Your party is in the dumpster when it comes to the polls, and everyone seems to be connecting with Pierre, so nobody agrees with you on your analysis. Just a great exchange there.
But Canadians seem to be agreeing with the message that Pierre Poilievre is putting out there for the Conservatives to be enjoying such a lead in the polls.
So what's interesting is one of the people I saw in the front row of this speech is former leader Andrew Scheer, who's sitting in the front row and no longer leader because he was well in advance of the last campaign. People were liking what he was talking about. And then he started nominating a bunch of candidates that didn't sit with Canadians' values. I believe 80 or so members of his candidate list were pro-life candidates. You started to see, even in the Aaron O'Toole years, you had policy resolutions that weren't with Canadians' values. It was, we're not sure that climate change is real and we're sure as heck not going to do anything about it. That's not where Canadians were. Pierre Poilievre talks about the gatekeepers and we need to build housing, and God knows, anybody who sees my social media knows that I hate NIMBYs more than anyone on earth. However, there is nothing in this policy resolution book here at this convention that's going to build a lick of new housing. He invoked tonight in his speech the famous five, which is the women who brought forward the Persons case. And he talked about women's rights. And there's a whole bunch of resolutions here and a whole lot of conversations that are about body autonomy, except for anyone with a uterus. So there are some disconnects. So it's great that he's out in front right now, but he's going to have some explaining to do when we start to see policies, when we start to see resolutions, when we start to see candidates. And that's not so easily flatlined away.
Oh, what the fuck? Holy shit, where did she get that from?
She just... So, just to remind everybody what the question was, Kim, you're full of it. Why do you think Pierre is doing so well in the polls? And her response was to crap on Andrew Scheer.
Like, really crap on him. Not just say the former leader. It was like, oh, no, wait. It was the former leader.
And crap on Aaron O'Toole. Crap on the past performances of the Conservatives. And you know what? Fair game, fine. If you want to talk about the party, fine. And then went on this tirade about, Pierre invoked the famous five. Yeah, he can talk about it. It shows he respects women.
And again, this is the problem with left women, like left-leaning women. They cannot stand that conservative men respect women.
Yeah, it goes against their whole ideological narrative.
Yeah, it goes against their narrative. Like, Cypher would not support me staying home and not going out into the world and getting a job so that I could stay home and raise our son and run the household if he did not love and respect me. And that's what these left women don't understand. They do not understand that it is possible.
No, it's just we're bitter at everything, and it doesn't matter what you say. We're going to find something to be bitter about.
Let's keep watching this train wreck, shall we?
Okay, so listen, I've got less than a minute, but I'm going to give this one to you, Kim, because I'm wondering how the Liberals and the NDP might respond to this, because, again, a sizable lead, and I understand what you're saying. It was still a very strong speech from Pierre Poilievre tonight.
Look, if he hadn't had a strong speech after, an hour? First of all, the man could use an editor, but let's park that for a second. The reality is what we've seen from Pierre Poilievre is a bit of blue-collar cosplay. He's trying to look like he's one of these guys, but then he says phrases like, I was out with the common people at their festivals. The lack of authenticity is something that he's going to have to really figure out of who he is and what he wants to portray. portray. And what we're also going to see from the other parties in the House, including Jagmeet and the New Democrats, is what are the solutions? It's not enough to say catchy slogans and have them printed on pretty banners. But you actually have to walk the talk. And when Pierre Poilievre was minister, he left those veterans out to dry. The PTSD, the trauma that these veterans were facing was completely ignored by the Conservative government that he was part of. And he's going to have to answer for that.
Yeah, better to offer them MAID like the Liberal government is doing, right?
Yeah, that's a great solution. And better to also say to those veterans, you're asking for more than I can give you. Go away.
Which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Why are we still fighting against certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now.
That's the way Trudeau does it.
Well, Pierre addressed that in his speech as well. And yeah, it's not by putting slogans on. Lady, he's preparing for an election, if you hadn't noticed. You've got to come up with solutions. Do you really think he's going to be giving away the detailed solutions to what his election platform is going to be before the election has even started? Really? Do you really think that?
This lady seems like she doesn't have two brain cells to rub together, so I wouldn't be surprised if she did think that.
She's just completely bitter, completely consumed by ideological loyalty, and even her talking about, oh, well, Pierre's talking about he was out with the common people and he's doing blue-collar cosplay. It's called respecting your audience.
Well, and it's not cosplay. He's just trying to show the dichotomy between the Liberals and all their cronies and all how they're so rich. I keep saying they 1% because they are. And then there's the rest of us, the common people. So he's saying that he's part of the common people because he's not part of that 1%. He had to work to get to where he was. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his ass the way Trudeau was.
And he's saying, I'm one of you because we're dealing with the common sense of the common people. That's part of his narrative. And it's part of what he's pushing. And guess what, lady? It's working.
Well, I thought that was the best speech of his I have ever heard. And I'm not just saying that. Like, he had a lot of the same elements in it as the one he gave when we went to that rally in St. Catharines. But it was polished, it was witty, it was clever, it was endearing when he was interacting with his children. Like, it was awesome. And I loved how Anna came and spoke to introduce her husband at the beginning. Like, there are so few conservative female role models for women like us to look up to. And I just thought that was amazing. And you could hear her little boy just crying out for her while she was doing the introduction. I don't even know how to describe it. As a mother, it was just so endearing. And you think, how she supports Pierre, her husband, how she must run the family, because he's on the road so much of the time. And sometimes she's with him and sometimes she's not. And that's going to be so hard to be separated from your spouse for any length of time, let alone while he's touring the country, trying to make it a better place for you and your children and everyone else's children too.
And let's just finish off on this. She's talking about Pierre Poilievre in terms of he can't relate to the common people and implying that he thinks that he's better than them by calling them common people in their festivals. Who's your leader, lady? A guy who wears a Rolex all the time, a guy who drives a BMW and loves to show everybody that he drives a BMW and wears Armani suits everywhere. And he's supposed to be the leader of the New Democrat Party, the party of the working class people. Are you serious? The guy who votes for the carbon tax and then turns around and then criticizes that Trudeau left the GST on the carbon tax? This guy? The guy who has a supply and confidence agreement that has allowed Trudeau to put our country into more debt than all previous prime ministers combined. The guy that has allowed this housing crisis to continue The guy that has allowed the opioid crisis to continue and advocates for legalizing crack cocaine and heroin. This guy? You seriously want to put this guy next to Pierre Poilievre? Any day of the week, lady. Any day.